Hello. What? What the heck is that noise? Hello? Oh, hey. What are you doing? What? I said, what are you doing? Oh, well, you see, she thought she'd help herself to my hard-earned Geo, so I'm teaching her a lesson. Help herself to your what? My Geo? Geo? Yes? Why are you acting confused? It's Geo. Well, just seems a little extreme, is all. Extreme? Do you know how hard it is to collect this stuff? I was about to buy the lantern and she just took off with— Whoa, wait. Buy? Yes, buy. What else would I do with it? That stuff is money? Well, I'd call it currency, but yeah. Yeah, okay, sure. And this currency, where did you get it from? A rock on the wall. A rock on the wall. Yes, a rock. On the wall. You got money. From a rock. Yeah. On the wall. Yes, I did. Really? Yep. And people accept this as legal tender? Well, I certainly wasn't going to question them. So you're just ripping them off. I mean, is it ripping off if they're the ones asking for it in exchange for goods and services? If they don't understand what they're asking for is valueless, yes. Agree to disagree. Agree to Dude, do you even know what that's made out of? I could just go to any old fancy looking rock and pick it up off the ground and say, oh look, I have one large molp, which is worth 60 bajillion molps. You can do whatever you want, but that's not the point. Arrive at the point. You know what? Maybe I will. Oh yeah? Yeah. I'm gonna get to the bottom of this. What the hell even is Geo anyway? Let's start with what Team Cherry says about Geo. The description of Geo says it's made from fossilized shells of various forms, which I'm hesitant to believe, as Geo doesn't really seem to fit into the description of any of the processes that fossilization can occur from. There are many different ways fossilization can happen, but 5 of them are more common. Soft tissue fossilization, in which the subject is rapidly encased in a different material soon after its death, such as ice, volcanic ash, or sinking into a bog. Luckily, Geo isn't made out of skin and flesh, so we can rule this one out. There's trace fossilization, which very simply is just the recorded activity of an organism, i.e. a footprint or petrified poo. Definitely not Geo. Being encased in amber is another form of fossilization, but as Geo is not amber, obviously, this can't be it. Impression fossils form when the original bone or tissue of the organism is removed by processes that occur after their death, such as water aiding the decomposition process, leaving an empty space in the shape of the organism in the place the death occurred. The most common form of this would be the sand dollar, which Geo is not. And finally, there's permineralization, which occurs when minerals carried by groundwater fill up the space in the cells of the dead plant or animal, through a process of crystallization over many thousands of years. This is most commonly referred to as a petrified fossil, and it actually comes pretty close to the description of Geo. There's a couple problems with this though. One is the aforementioned time it takes for things to fossilize. Unless this stuff grows out of the walls at an exponential rate, or there was a massive extinction event that took place before the Pale King's rule, there simply couldn't be enough organic material to produce this many fossils. It's unclear how long the Pale King ruled Hallownest for, but you're telling me they have a civil society where money is literally growing out of the walls, and the denizens of Hallownest don't take them for everything they're worth? There's no way the knight should be able to find this much money after such a revolutionary society. Now, you could say that the Radiants coming back could have caused another extinction, but it would simply not be possible for their corpses to have fossilized in the short time between the end of the Pale King's reign and the events of the game. We know this as there are bugs that the knight speaks with that remember and existed during those times, such as Dung Defender and Midwife. So, Geo clearly cannot occur due to permineralization, which rules out all possibilities of fossilization. Now that we've proved Team Cherry wrong, we are led to our next task. We need to find out what Geo is made out of, and just how much it's worth. I scoured the internet for more information on Geo, but kept turning up with nothing, which, to be honest, isn't surprising. This is a pretty small detail in the game, Just a little bit of lore to give this otherwise mundane item some extra flair. Sadly, this isn't enough for me, so we'll have to get our answer through more practical means. That's right. To solve this mystery, I'll need to use science. And I know just the way to go about it. Ready? Watch.
See? You see? Well, you don't see it?
The Geo bounces. Different materials bounce at different heights, so if I'm able to find the right information, we'll have the key to our mystery. First, we need to calculate the height of the knight as a reference. His height isn't mentioned anywhere. However, thanks to this old Reddit post from a deleted user in 2019, we have an answer. On December 9th, 2014, Team Cherry made this Kickstarter update detailing stretch goals, a brand new backer tier, and the reveal of everyone's favorite non-existent protagonist, Hornet. Her description reads, "Quick with her deadly needle, relentless in battle, Hornet is exploring Hallownest to find the answer to a riddle that has plagued her. She has so far resisted the infection, but will still cut you down if you stand in her path. You may catch glimpses of Hornet during your exploration of Hallownest, although she always seems to be 1 or 2 steps ahead of you. If you do manage to catch up with her, be wary. Her needle can cut a bug down from 30 yards. While it's fun to take a little peek into the history of the game, this innocuous boasting done by Team Cherry is just the information we need for our height dilemma. In 2 different endings to the game, Hornet joins the knight in battle against the Hollow Knight, spearing into its mask from off-screen and allowing the knight the chance to dream nail him for the final fight. While it's not explicitly stated what Hornet's max range is for her nail, we'll just assume it's the 30 yards that Team Cherry mentioned. Now, I do admit that this next part is a bit of a stretch, but it's all we have to go off of, so it'll have to do. We don't see Hornet move from when we talk to her outside and when we see her in the final battle. So, let's assume that Hornet throws her needle from outside the Black Egg Temple her max distance of 30 yards. This would make the Black Egg Temple 30 yards long from the entrance into the Hollow Knight's prison, and now we have a consistent measurement. We just have to figure out how it relates to the knight, which, thankfully, is simple enough. If the knight crystal dashes from one end of the temple to the other, it takes around 8 seconds. This means that the knight is moving at 3.75 yards, or 3.429 meters, a second. If we slow things down, we can see that the knight seems to travel his height and distance every 3 frames, meaning at the game's 30 frames per second, he's moving 10 times his height every second. 3 frames to travel his height, and 30 frames to fill a second. This means that the knight's height is equal to 3.75 divided by 10, or 0.375 yards, or 1 foot and 1.5 inches, or 34.29 centimeters. And just for fun, if we stand next to Hornet, we can see her height is 1 foot and 7.6 inches, or 49.75 centimeters. Now that we have the knight's height, let's put this so-called Geo to the test. We could just use these tiny bounces we get from the rocks as our measurement, but I think it will be more accurate if we add a little more height. There's this tall room in Soul Sanctum that will do the trick. If we break these floors and use our 49-ish centimeter figure to stack the knight on top of itself all the way to the top, we find that this section of the room is 27.35-ish feet tall. Now, if we use this handy-dandy height graph, bait the follies over the hole, and kill them, we can see just how high the Geo bounces. Now, the physics system in HK is a little odd, so even though I killed the follies in the same spot each time, there was still variance in the bounce height of the Geo. To make up for this, I did the experiment 5 separate times and tracked the piece of Geo with the highest bounce, then averaged them. Doing this, we get the average bounce height of 174.3 inches, or 4.4 meters. But what exactly does this mean? To know this, we need to understand why something bounces. This is due to a little thing called elasticity. The direct definition of elasticity is the ability of an object or material to resume its normal shape after being stretched or compressed. Basically, as an object is falling, it's gaining momentum at 9.8 meters per second, the force of gravity, among other factors. When the object stops falling and hits the ground, the object deforms proportionally to the force exerted upon it during the fall, depending on the elasticity of said object. In layman's terms, This is why a rubber ball bounces higher than a glass bead. Rubber is more elastic than glass, meaning that as the ball decompresses from hitting the ground, it wants to return to its original shape more than the bead, resulting in a higher bounce. The equation to find just how bouncy any certain material is called the coefficient of restitution, or the coefficient of elasticity. The equation is E equals H' over H, where E is the coefficient of restitution, H is the height from which the object was dropped, and H' is the maximum height of the first bounce. Plugging in our numbers, we get E equals 4.4 divided by 8.3. We're using meters because that's what the equation calls for, which comes out to 0.53099. And this is how we'll find what Geo is made out of. If we can find an experiment done with a material in real life that has around the same COR of 0.53099, then we'll be able to find out what it's made out of and just how much it's really worth. Extremely luckily for me, this just so happened to be the case. At Redacted High School, a science class tested the COR of different materials for an engineering project. Among those materials were a golf ball, a tennis ball, a billiard ball, a handball, a wooden ball, a steel ball bearing, a glass marble, a ball of rubber bands, and a hollow, hard plastic ball. Their experiment happened along the same lines as ours did. Each ball was dropped from the same height numerous times, and the average of all bounces was taken and plugged into the equation. Looking at the table of results, we find that the closest material to our COR of 0.53099 is a steel ball bearing. It's perfect. Raw steel is mined out of rocks. The knight gets Geo out of rocks. Not only do we get the material it's made out of, we can also directly find its worth. The price of a single steel ball bearing, as well as a single Geo, is 38 cents. In your face, Team Cherry. I really hope you enjoyed, because I had to do math for this video, which really sucked. Not a big fan of math. But hey, everything worked out in the end, so I guess it was worth it. Hollow Knight is a ridiculously detailed game. Team Cherry clearly put a ton of effort into every minute detail. And just like my speed and challenge runs, it'll always be fun to pick my favorite game apart. Thanks for watching.